Hi everybody. Well, here's our first ACT review packet. Um, I'm going to call it 2 triangle. When I look at problem number 1, I see 3x minus 5 equals 7, and they ask me what's 3x equal to? Well, if I just add 5 to both sides of this equation, I get that 3x is equal to 12, and that's choice E. I'm done. Don't divide by 4. They want to know what 3x is. That's 3x. You're all done. 2. What's the complement of 70 degrees? Well, complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. So if I subtract 70 from both sides of this equation, I end up with the complement is 20 degrees, and that's G. 3. 3 says 70 is 10% of what number? Okay, well, is in math land means equals, and 10% is 0.10, and of almost always means multiply. So this sentence in English, 70 is 10% of x, becomes 70 equals 0.10x. If I divide both sides by 0.10, I get x equals 700. And that's choice D. D for number 3. Let's take a look at 4 on the next page. 4. The sum of 3 consecutive integers is 99. What is the value of the greatest of these 3 integers? Well, remember, consecutive integers are numbers in a row, like 3, 4, 5, or 27, 28, 29. We're looking for 3 consecutive integers that when we add them up will add up to 99. And then we want to know the biggest of those 3. So I don't know what those 3 integers are, but if x is the first one, then I have to add 1 to get to the second one, and then I have to add 1 more to get to the third consecutive number. So these are my 3 consecutive numbers, and I want to add these 3 up, and the sum should be 99. So 3x plus 3 equals 99, 3x equals 96, x equals 32. But 32 is the smallest of the consecutive integers, and I need to know the biggest. Ooh, it looks like I'm running out of space down here. So let me not go any further down there, and instead let me say, I'll go over here. Let me say that we're looking for x plus 2. So 32 plus 2 is 34. 34 would be my biggest, and that corresponds with H. H for number 4. How about 5? Oops, that's a little over there for 5. 5. Okay. 5 says, what's the area of the figure below? Well, I see this right triangle. I see this is 15 and this is 12, and I'm going to have to find that. Because in order to find the area of the triangle, I need 1/2 base times height. So how do I find that height? Well, because this is a right triangle, I can use the Pythagorean theorem. So with the Pythagorean theorem, I could do h squared plus 12 squared equals 15 squared. That's going to be h squared plus 144 equals 225, or h squared equals 81, which means that h equals 9. So I know that h is equal to 9. So what's the area of this triangle? It's 1/2 12 times 9. Or 6 times 9, which is 54. And 54 corresponds with A. A is the answer for number 5. Okay. Remember, we're trying to keep to the pace of a problem a minute so we can get done with 60 problems in 60 minutes. Number 6. Dyson earned 8 hours a week, $8 per hour working at the grocery store. Boss gave him a 10% raise. If he works 20 hours this week, what will his gross income be? Well, so he was making $8, and then his boss gave him a 20% raise. So that's going to be $1.60 on top of that $8. So now he's making $9.60 an hour, and he's working for 20 hours. When I multiply 20 times 960, I get J, $176. Okay, what about 7? 7 says, which of the following inequalities is equivalent to 3 minus 4x plus 7 less than 19? 3 minus 4x minus 28 less than 19. When I distribute, don't forget that negative times that positive makes that negative. Now I'm going to combine like terms and get negative 25 minus 4x is less than 19. And if I add 25 to both sides, I get negative 4x is less than 44. So I divide by negative 4. And don't forget what your middle school teacher taught you. When you divide an inequality by a negative number, you need to, I need this a little higher. That's not better at all. That's a little better, but a little higher still. There we go. Okay, remember what your middle school math teacher said, that when you divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, that changes the direction of the inequality. And so I end up with x is greater than negative 11. And x is greater than negative 11 corresponds with D. D for number 7. 8. 8 says, which of the following is equivalent to 3 square root of 300 minus 5 square root of 75. Okay, so that's 3 times 100. 3 times 100 minus 5 times, well, that's 3 times 25. And conveniently, that's 10 times 10, and that's 5 times 5. So 3 square root 3, 10 times 10, minus 5 square root 3 times 5 times 5. We can pull out a 10, so now 10 times 3 is 30 root 3. We can pull out a 5. 5 times 5 is 25 root 3. 30 root 3's minus 25 root 3's is 5 root 3's. And that corresponds to G. G for number 8. Okay, what about number 9? 9. 9 says absolute value negative 2 plus 3 squared minus absolute value negative 2 minus 3 squared. Well, 3 squared is not 6. It's 3 times 3, which is 9. So 9 minus 2 is 7. And then here we've got 3 squared, which is 9. But now we have negative 2 minus 9, which is negative 11. The absolute value of negative 11 is 11. So 7 minus 11 is negative 4, and that corresponds to choice B, negative 4 for problem number 9. Okay, can I get problem 10 in here? Maybe. Let's see. Angle A is 75 degrees. Angle B is 36 degrees. And how long would that be for angle C? Well, I know that the angles should add up to 180. So if I do 180 minus 75 minus 36, I get 69 degrees, I think. Let's see. 105 minus 36. 9, 6. Yes, 69. So this is 69 degrees. Okay. The question says, which segment is the longest? Which segment is the longest? Well, I remember the triangle inequality theorem from geometry, and that says that across from the biggest angle is the biggest side. So the biggest side here is going to be BC, and BC corresponds to G. They certainly do like G in this packet. Okay, let's take a look at number 11. Number 11. 11 says, which of the following is a factor of 3x squared plus x minus 4, 3x, x, 4, 1, with a positive and a minus. Now you may be saying, Mr. Kukla, how did you factor that so quickly? Well, I used guess and check. But let's say you don't want to use guess and check. I'll be showing you a method now that you're welcome to use, and I have typed notes that you can have in the classroom for this if you need a set. This is A, this is C, and this is B. I'm going to multiply A times C, and I'm going to look for the factors of A times C that add up to B. So I'm looking for the factors of negative 12 that add up to 1. So 1 and negative 12, do they add up to 1? No. How about 2 and negative 6, do they add up to 1? No. How about 4 and negative 3, do they add up to 1? Oh yes, they do. So I'm going to take these and replace this one term with these two terms. 3x squared plus 4x minus 3x minus 4. Now I've got 4 terms here. Why would I ever want 4 terms when I was happy with 3? Well, the answer is because with 4 terms, I can now group in pairs. From the first pair, I can pull out an x and have 3x plus 4. From the second pair, I can pull out a negative 1, giving me also 3x plus 4. Because these factors are the same, I can factor them out from each of these 2 terms, and so I'll have 3x plus 4 times x minus 1, and we see that x minus 1 is choice E. What about number 12? Which of the following equations passes through the point negative 3, 5? Negative 3, 5. You know, I don't have a quick way here for you for this, except to plug in this for x and this for y. For example, when I plug that into the first equation, negative 2 times negative 3 minus 3, I get 5 equals 6 minus 3, or 5 equals 3. And that's not happy. So when I tried h, I said, aha, h is going to be 5 equals minus a minus 3 plus 2. That's 5 equals 3 plus 2, or 5 equals 5, and I'm a happy camper, and choice H is the answer for number 12. How about 13? Let's take a look at 13. 13 says f of x is negative x squared plus 4 over x. That's f of x. Then what's f of negative 2? Well, I'm supposed to replace all the x's with negative 2. So here I'm going to put a negative 2, and here I'm going to put a negative 2. Don't lose this negative when you put a negative 2 in here. So now we'll have negative 2 squared plus 4 over negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4 with a negative out in front. So I have negative 4 plus 4 over negative 2, which is 0 over negative 2. And as we said earlier this year, that's equal to 0. And so our answer is choice C for number 13. We're 14 minutes in and 13 problems done. Let's keep going. 14. Which of the following equations is parallel to y equals negative 3/4 x plus 2? Well, we know the slope of our parallel line should be negative 3/4. So which of these equations here has a slope of negative 3/4? Well, there's only 2 of them. And the first one is f that says negative 3/4 x. And then there's also k, which says negative 3/4 x plus 2. So why isn't this the answer? Well, that's our original equation. It can't be parallel to itself. It would sit on top of itself. So F is our answer for number 14. How about number 15? On the next page, we've got number 15, and it says there's an aquarium with two types of fish, goldfish and angelfish. The ratio is 2 to 5. There are 25 angelfish. Oh, these are goldfish to angelfish. Well, how many groups of 5 are there in the 25 angelfish? That's 5 times 5. Well, to maintain this ratio, I have 5 times a 5, so I'm going to need a 2 times a 5 to maintain that ratio. So there must be 10 goldfish if there are 25 angelfish to maintain the ratio of, for every 2 of these, there's 5 of those. But what does the question then ask us? It asks us how many total fish there are. 10 plus 25 is 35. There's 35 total fish, and that's choice C. 16. How many different lines in the same plane can intersect? 3 different lines in the same plane can intersect at how many points? Well, they don't have to intersect at all. So I guess K is the answer. 17. Is negative 1, A, 0. So A is a negative number between 0 and negative 1. For example, negative 1/2. I don't know if it's negative 1/2 or not. I'm just picking a negative number between 0 and negative 1. And we're told that B is a negative number between negative 4 and negative 3. That means that A is actually a bigger number than B. And I'm going to go with negative 3.5 for B. Okay. And we know that C would equal A minus B. So negative 1/2 minus a minus 3.5 would be positive 3.5. Ooh, C is a positive number. The other two are negative. Which of the following statements is true? Okay. C is less than A. Well, A was negative and C is positive, so that's not true. C is less than B. Well, B is negative and C is still positive, so that's not true. If I add A and B together, I get negative 4. Is that bigger than this? No, negative 4 is not bigger than positive 3.5. Is C less than 0? No, C is a positive number. Is C bigger than 0? Yes, C is bigger than 0, and so E is my answer to number 17. Okay, let's move on to 18. The slope between these points. Okay, I'm glad we talked about slope already this year. 5 minus 8 over negative 2 minus 0. And that gives me negative 3 over negative 2, which is 3/2, and that's choice K. 19. 19 has a lot of words. Let's see now. They're working from a recipe that makes 32 cupcakes. The recipe requires 2.5 cups of sugar to make one batch. If they need to make 250 cupcakes, oh my goodness, that's a lot of batches. So 250 to 32 is equal to, what's the least amount of sugar? Okay, well, we need 2.5 cups of sugar, and I don't know how many. So let's solve this equation for S. It looks like I'm going to multiply both sides by 2.5 to get S by itself. And 2.5, you can do this on your calculator. This is a calculator active test. I'm not using my calculator right now, so I'm going to convert that to 5/2 times 250 over 32. And is there any canceling? Sure, I can cancel here and get 125. So I get 125 times 5, which is 625 over 32, which 30 goes into 600 20 times. So I'm going with 20, and choice D, and you can confirm that on your calculator. Now the number is not going to be exactly 20. It's what's the least amount of sugar. So it's probably like 19.7, and so 20 is the least amount on these that I would need to get away with the actual amount. Okay, and then what about problem number 20 on the next page? Ooh, look, we're already on 20. 20 says, what's the value of sine of c? Well, remember sine is opposite over hypotenuse. And in this picture, the problem is I'm not given for angle C what the opposite side is. But I do know this is a right triangle. And because it's a right triangle, I can use the Pythagorean theorem, or better yet, I memorized my Pythagorean triples, and so I know that this is going to be 15. But if I don't know my Pythagorean triples, then I could say 17 squared equals 8 squared plus opposite squared. And that's 289 equals 64 plus opposite squared. If I subtract 64 from both sides, I get 225 equals opposite squared. And if I take the square root, I end up with the opposite side is 15. So this is 15. Remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. The opposite side is 15. The hypotenuse, the one across from the right angle, is 17. So I get 15 over 17, which corresponds to choice G. G for number 9. Oh, G for number 20. This was number 20 we were doing. 20 is G. Okay, let's take a look at 21. It asks us to use rules for exponents. 21, we've got 5 to the third times 5 to the negative 7 equals 1 over 5 to the x. Well, remember when we multiply and the bases are the same, we can add those exponents. So this is going to be 3 plus negative 7, or 5 to the negative fourth, which is 1 over 5 to the x. Well, I remember from last year that we can rewrite this negative exponent as 1 over 5 to the fourth. So what's x equal to? X must be 4. And so my answer to 21 is C. How about 22? 22. Oh, we've got a lot of lines here and a lot of letters. We've got y here, we've got x over here, we've got w over here, we've got z, and we've got m. Okay, we know that WYZ is 28 degrees. Okay, and we know that WM bisects X, Y, X, Y, X, X, Y, M, X, Y, M. No, sorry, read that wrong. YM, this one, bisects this one, ZYX. So these are two equal pieces. Okay, I see that this is a straight line, so I know that's 180 degrees. So 180 degrees should equal 28 plus x, or 180 equals 28 plus 2x. If I subtract 28 from both sides, I get 152 equals 2x, and if I divide both sides by 2, I get 76 equals x. So that's choice E. E tells me how big this angle is here. Okay, 23. Let's take a look at 23. 23 says, which of the following is the greatest common factor between 36m to the fourth, n to the third, p to the fifth, and 24m squared n to the first? Well, greatest common factor is the most I can divide out of each of these terms. And it looks like, while it's true, I could take a 4 out of each of these terms, or even a 6 out of each of these terms. 12 is actually the greatest common factor. And so I'm going to take a 12 out. I can also, I see, take m squared out. I can take 2m's out of this and 2m's out of this. I can't take any p's out because this doesn't have any p's, but this has n to the first and this has n to the first, so I can take an n to the first out. And this corresponds with choice H. H for number 23. I'm sorry, that was 24. What was 23? Oh, I skipped it. This was 24. I'll come back and do 23 now. 23. Ooh, inscribed angles. Remember that an inscribed angle is half of the intercepted arc. Okay, we know the measure of angle BAC is 35 degrees, which means that this arc is twice as much, or 70 degrees. Yes, you really are going to have to know that inscribed angles are half as much as their intercepted arcs for this test. Find the measure of arc AB. Okay, well, arc AB is this arc over here. I don't know how big that is yet, but, oh, look, it says that AC is a diameter. And one of the things that I know about a diameter is that it intersects a semicircle. So I know that this is 180 degrees. I've used 70 of them. How many are left for this if from here to here adds up to 180? Well, 180 minus 70 gives me 110 degrees. So this arc is 110, AB is 110, and that's choice E for real number 23. Okay, 25. 25, Dave drove 144 miles to see his favorite band. The drive to the concert took 3 hours. Okay. On the way home, he drove 10 miles an hour faster. How long did the return trip take? All right, well, let's think about this. We remember from middle school that distance equals rate times time. And he did 144 miles, and we don't know his rate, but it took him 3 hours. So we divide both sides by 3, and we get his rate was 144 divided by 3. Well, 144 divided by 3 turns out to be 48 miles per hour. So that's how fast he was driving to go there. Now on the way home, it says he drove 10 miles an hour faster. So plus 10 means he's driving 58 miles per hour on the way home. The trip is still 144 miles. So if I go back to distance equals rate times time and put in my 144 and my 58, I'll be able to solve for time by dividing both sides by 58. I end up with a number close to, but not exactly, 2.5 hours. So this is going to be B, approximately 2.5 hours to get home. Okay, just remember, don't speed. 26. So 26 deals with matrices. And matrices are something we're going to do in January. But all we need to worry about with 26 is solving for x. And I see these matrices are being added, and then there's this result over here. But I also see that x only shows up here. So I'm only interested in these cells. 2x minus 1 plus negative 4x minus 2 equals 12. So I combine like terms here on the left, and I get negative 2x minus 3 equals 12. I'll add 3. I'll get negative 2x equals 15, or x equals negative 15 halves, which is negative 7.5. And that corresponds to choice E. I had to know that these corresponding values were the things that I was going to be adding when I added matrices. Don't worry, we'll talk more about that in January. 27. Paxton leaves his house at noon, heading due east for 4 miles. Okay, there's his house. He heads due east for 4 miles. Now what? He turns and heads directly south for 6 miles. 6 miles. What is the straight line distance from Paxton's house to the marina? Well, so we want to know this distance. Hey, there's a right triangle, so we can use the Pythagorean theorem. 4 squared plus 6 squared equals that distance squared. 16 plus 36 is distance squared. This is 52 equals distance squared. And when we take the square root of 52, we notice that that can be broken down into 2 times 2 times 13, or 2 root 13, which is how they get the answer C. C for number 27. 27 is C. Okay, 28. 28 is the area of a triangle again. We remember the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. In this situation, we know that the height is equal to 3. The base is 2w squared minus 8w plus 7. So I want 1/2 base times height. 2w squared minus 8w plus 7. Well, I can distribute this 3 to all of these and then have 1/2 6w squared minus 24w plus 21. In fact, if I remember my middle school math, I know that without even having to distribute this, that this multiplication problem is the same as over 2. So I did 1 times all this stuff and put it all over that 2. And so this corresponds to choice G. G for number 28. 28 is G. How about 29? 29 says, what's the difference in measure in one interior and one exterior angle of a regular decagon? No kidding. You're supposed to remember this formula. N minus 2 times 180 over N tells me the measure of each interior angle of an n-sided polygon. A decagon, n is equal to 10. So I'm going to plug a 10 in here. 10 minus 2 times 180 over 10. This 10 can cancel, and now I've got 8 times 18, which is 144 degrees. So I know that the interior angle is 144 degrees. And what you may not remember is interior angles and exterior angles are supplementary. So this must be 36 degrees. Now, remember what the question said. The question said, what's the difference between these two numbers? 144 minus 36 gives me 108 degrees, and that corresponds with choice C. Choice C for number 29. And look, another formula to remember. You might want to create a page in your notebook called Formulas I Should Know for the ACT, because they're not going to give me a formula sheet. And this would be one of them. Pythagorean theorem and slope formula would be other good ones to add. Okay, we're on to number 30. Not bad, because we're only at 33 minutes. Number 30 says, what's the tangent of A minus the cosine of C? Okay, so here's B, C, A, 15, 17. Gosh, if you knew your Pythagorean triples, you would know this is 8. If you don't know your Pythagorean triples, in order to find this side, you're going to have to do 17 squared equals 15 squared plus s squared. That's going to be 289 equals 225 plus s squared, or 64 equals s squared. Take the square root and you get 8. See, wouldn't it be easier just to know that that's 8 because it's an 8, 15, 17 right triangle? I sure do like my Pythagorean triples. They make my life so much easier. Okay, so now what do I need? I need to know the tangent of A. Well, tangent is opposite over adjacent, so the tangent of A is 8 over 15. And from that, I have to subtract the cosine of C. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so 8 over 17. So I need to do this subtraction, and I'm going to make a common denominator, which means 17 over 17 and 15 over 15, and I end up with 16 over 225, and that corresponds to choice J for number 30. Okay, how about 31? 31 says x strange symbol y means x plus y, x minus y. Okay. Then they show me 1 strange symbol, parentheses, 2 strange symbol 2. Well, because of the parentheses, I know PEMDAS says I have to do parentheses first. So I'm going to follow this model. Wherever I see an x, I'm going to put a 2. Wherever I see a y, I'm going to put a 2. And so that's going to give me 2 plus 2 times 2 minus 2. Well, that's 4, but that's 0. And 4 times 0 is 0. So all of this becomes 0. So now I've got 1 strange symbol 0. I'm going to plug this in for x up here, and this in for y up here, and I'm going to have 1 plus 0, 1 minus 0, which is 1 times 1, or 1. So I get B for number 31. Okay. 32. Sophie has played 6 games of soccer, scoring 0, 1, 3, 2, 4, and 1 goal, respectively, in these games. All right, so I'm going to, since this problem is asking for median, I want to put these numbers in order for number 32. So 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, which of the following values will not yield a median of 2 goals scored? Okay, so we're adding the number of goals for game 7. And if we add one more number here, like 5, then 3 and 3 makes 2 the median. So 5 doesn't work. And if we look at the next choice, 4, if I do another 4, well, wait, that's still on this side. I need something over here so that this doesn't stay 2, because I keep getting 3 on this side and 3 on this side, and 2 is in the middle. So 4 didn't work either. But if I want something on this side, the only number on this side is 1. So let's add a 1. And notice now the number in the middle is no longer 2, the number is 1. So 1 is the number of goals in the 7th game, so that the median will no longer be 2, and that corresponds with choice F. F for number 32. 33. 33 says the center of the circle in this equation. Well, we'll be getting to circles in a couple of weeks. Inside is opposite land, so -7 is the x-coordinate for the center. Inside is opposite land, so y equals 5 is the y-coordinate. And so my center is located at -7, 5, which is choice B. B for number 33. How about 34? 34 says, given the equation 3x minus 7y equals 21, which is the equation in slope-intercept form. Well, slope-intercept form means I have y by itself, so I'm going to subtract 3x, and I'm going to get minus 7y equals -3x plus 21. And then I'm going to divide everywhere by -7. Here by -7, here by -7. So I'm going to get y. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. And so which one is this? 3/7 x minus 3 corresponds to choice K for number 34. K for number 34. Let's take a look at 35 now. 35 says, find the value of A. Okay. We've got some parallel lines. Parallel, parallel. We know that this is 112, which means that this is 112. These are supplementary, so this is 68. So this is 68. And then over here we know this is 95, so this is 95, and because of corresponding angles, this is 95. And now I'm looking at these vertical angles. So there's angle A. The angles of the triangle should add up to 180. I've got 68 and 95 and angle A. That's 150, 158, 163, 180 minus 163 gives me 17 degrees for angle A. And that's choice A. A for number 35. What about 36? 36 says, which of the following is the solution set to this inequality? Negative 2/3 x plus 5 less than negative 1/3 2x plus 9. Okay, well over here I distribute, and I get negative 2/3 x plus 5 is less than negative 2/3 x minus 3. And that says 5 is less than, because look, these are the same on both sides. You can add them to both sides and they'll cancel. And then you've got 5 is less than negative 3. That's not true. That's never true. So I think that's going to inform my answer that there is no solution, and so choice J is my answer to 36. How about 37? Can we get 37 here? 37 is perpendicular line. So, and we want to be perpendicular to negative 3/5 x plus 6y equals 18. Okay, so I don't know the slope of this line yet because it's not in slope-intercept form, so 6y equals 3/5 x plus 18. And then if I divide by 6 everywhere, I see that y equals 1/10 x plus 3. Well, that's my original line, and I want something perpendicular to this. So if there's a line perpendicular to this, the slope would have to be the opposite reciprocal. The slope would be negative 10. Well, it turns out there's only one equation of the line with a slope of negative 10, and that's choice D, so that's my answer. 38. 38, Dustin is on the 40th floor at the local airport. He spots a plane that's just landed. Using protractor, measures the angle of depression from the top of his 40-foot tower. This is the angle of depression. He measures that angle to the plane to be 12 degrees. Well, curiously, the angle of depression from the top of the tower to the plane is the same as the angle of elevation from the plane to the top of the tower. So this is also 12 degrees. So what are we looking for here? We're looking for how far from the base of the control tower is the plane. We want this distance. Well, that's using opposite and adjacent, so I know we want the tangent of 12 equals 40 over d. If I multiply both sides by d, that will cancel my fraction, but I want d by itself, so I have to divide by tangent 12. Divide by tangent 12. So d equals 40 over tan 12. And 40 over 10, 12, oh wait, look, there it is. I didn't even need my calculator. It's choice G. G for number 38. 38 was G. How about 39 on the next page? 39 says, for what values of x is the square root of x minus 5 defined on the real number system? Well, this is asking what's the domain. So we know to set this greater than or equal to 0, we add 5, and we say x is greater than or equal to 5. Oh, they're saying where is it undefined? So if this is 5 and x can be greater than 5, this is defined. Undefined is over here. So we want x less than 5 for undefined. And that's going to correspond to choice D. D for number 39. How about number 40 and 2/3 of the way through with this? Okay, 40 is, we've got this graph with this point on it called A, which is negative 3m. We want to reflect this across the line x equals 7. So I remember from geometry class that a reflection preserves distance. How far is it from negative 3 to positive 7? That's a distance of 10. So when I reflect this point across here, I'm going to go 10 in that direction. Well, I was at 7, and if I go 10 more, I'm now going to be at 17, m. So, what's my answer here? 17, m, and that's choice K for number 40. K for 40. How about 41? 41 says, given the line segment AB with A equals negative 3, 2, and B equals 5, 8, which of the following is the length? Well, for this we need the distance formula, and we'll be picking up the distance formula in the near future. The distance formula is square root of x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. It's really just the Pythagorean theorem rewritten, but we can plug in our x values and plug in our y values and get 5 minus a minus 3 squared plus 8 minus 2 squared, and that gives me 8 squared plus 6 squared, which is 64 plus 36, or 100. But remember, this 100 is under this square root. So the square root of 100 is 10. So the distance is 10, and that corresponds to choice C for number 41. 42. 42 says, given these similar rectangles, the sides are in a ratio of 1 to 4. Okay, so if I have these sides, like 3 and 4 to make this area of 12, what would happen if the ratio was 1 to 4? So for one of these, this one is 4 times larger. For one of these, this one is 4 times larger. So now I get 12 times 16, which is 168. Okay? What's the area of RECT? Oh, I'm sorry, not 168, because 6 times 2 is 12, so that's 192. 192 would be the area, and that's choice K. 43. 43 uses this table. Eric wants to make a circle graph from the given information. What would be the central angle for the dog piece of the graph? Well, dog is 16, and the total amount is 40. So dog is 16 out of 40. Well, that's some percent of the 360 degrees in the circle graph. And we don't even have to do this fraction. We can just cancel here and get 9. And 9 times 16 is 144 degrees. So dog is 144 degrees in our pie chart, and that corresponds to choice C. How about 44? This uses the table as well. Let's see. Eric recounted votes later. He realized that 3 of the votes had actually been cast for cats, got recorded as votes for dogs. So I'm going to take those 16 dog votes and I'm going to reduce them by 3. And I'm going to take those 15 cat votes and increase them by 3 to make 18. And the bird people are still the same. 9 stays 9. The total is still 40. Okay? What's the difference between the original percent of votes for cats and the corrected percent of votes for cats? Okay, so we went from 15 out of 40 to 18 out of 40. And the difference is 3 out of 40. And when I pull out my calculator, that's awfully close to 7.5%, or 0.07, I think it was 48. So that's where we're getting 7.5% from, and that corresponds with choice G. They really like G in this packet. Okay, that was 44, and we're done using the chart. We move on to 45, and we're 3/4 of the way done now with the packet. Downtown parking lot charges X dollars for the first hour, Y dollars for each hour after the first hour. So we're going to have X dollars for the first hour. And then he parks for H hours, where H is bigger than 6. So we pay Y dollars an hour for H minus 1. Remember, he's there for a total of H hours, but we spent one of them at X dollars per hour. And this is times 1 hour. So what do we have here? How much does Daniel pay? Well, that's exactly choice E. Well, there you go. 46. 46 says y equals 2x over 3z. What happens to the value of z if you double x and y? So 2y equals 2 times 2x over 3z. Well, curiously, if you now divide both sides by 2, nothing changed. Z stayed the same. So F is my answer for 46. 47 is on the next page. 47 says w to the 6th, t to the 5th, over m to the 9th is greater than 0, which must be true. Well, whether this is a positive number or a negative number, when I raise it to this power, this is always going to be positive. So I've got a positive here. M to the 9th. Well, m to the 9th could be a negative number, because a negative to an odd power is going to be negative. Or it could be an even number. If m is a positive number, then m to the 9th will be positive, and if m is a negative number, m to the 9th is a negative number. So m could be positive or negative. I don't have any surety on that. But I do know that if the result here is greater than 0, then this can't be negative. And here's why. Because this is already positive, and I need a positive times a positive to make a positive. You could say, well, what if this is positive? Well, let's think about this. This can be positive or negative. If this is negative, then this has to be negative. And I don't have an option of t must be negative. So m can't be positive. M can't be positive? M can be positive. Wait a second, I take that back. If this is positive, then I've got a positive on the bottom and a positive on the top, and then this has to be positive too. Well, this we said before could be positive or negative. If this is negative, then that has to be negative. Well, I don't like that. Oh, look, there it is. T times m has to be greater than 0. I agree. Yep, that's going to take care of it. T times m is greater than 0. Because both of these have to be the same, or no, they could be opposites. Brr. Yeah, I'm sticking with E. And if you want to chat about it, come on in and we'll chat. Okay, let's see if we can get 48 over here. 48 says, oh, it's log properties. 2 log x plus 1/2 log y minus 4 log z. We'll be doing logs in November, so don't stress about this too much. I'm going to kick these powers up with the power rule. So this is going to be log of x squared plus log of y to the 1/2 minus log of z to the 4th. Now, I remember the log property that says 2 logs joined with addition can turn into 1 log with multiplication, and 2 logs joined with subtraction can turn into division. So I get the log of x squared square root of y over z to the 4th, and that corresponds to h. H for number 48. More of that in November. Or come in and ask, and I'll help you out with that. 49. 49 is a table, and we're asked to find f of g of 2. Well, g of 2 means I need to read 2 and g, and I get 3. So g of 2 can be replaced with 3. Now I'm left with f of 3. So f of 3 means I go to f, go to 3, and I see they meet at negative 15. f of 3 is negative 15, which is why A is my answer for number 49. 50. 50 says you've got fish in a pond. It says the population of fish is inversely proportional to the number of predators, Q. Okay, so that's predators, that's fish. I don't know why they didn't call this predators with P and F for fish, but here we go. These are predators. So let's see what we've got here. We've got 49 predators, 800 fish. So we put in an 800 for fish. And, square root of Q. Square root of 49 over here. So I get 800 equals K over 7. And if I multiply both sides by 7, I get 5,600 equals K. So my fish model then is 5,600 over square root of predators. If there are 100 predators, I want square root of 100, which is 5,600 over 10, or 560 fish. And that corresponds to choice E. F. F is my answer to number 50. And we've got 10 problems left. Let's go. 51. We've got these 2 points. Which of the following is the slope between these points? Okay, so y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Hey, look, a difference of squares. That factors as x minus 1, x plus 1 over x minus 1. Hey, look, we can cancel factors. So the slope is going to be x plus 1, and that corresponds to choice C. We'll be doing more with factoring in our Algebra Basics chapter, which is starting on Tuesday. 52. 52 says, which of the following is equivalent to 3 times 3 to the 2x minus 5 over 3 to the x plus 1? Well, first of all, that's 3 to the 1 when I see 3. And when the bases are the same and I'm multiplying, I can add these exponents. So 2x minus 5 plus 1 becomes 2x minus 4. So on top, I have 3 to the 2x minus 4. On the bottom, I have 3 to the x plus 1. Now, what was that rule when I'm dividing and the bases are the same? What can I do with the exponents then? When I was multiplying and the bases were the same, I could add the exponents. When I'm dividing and the bases are the same, I subtract the exponents. 2x minus 4, subtract x plus 1. Remember to distribute this minus sign. 2x minus 4 minus x minus 1 gives me x minus 5. And that corresponds to choice 3 to the x minus 5 is G. All right, 53. 53. 53 says, what fraction is located exactly halfway between 3/8 and 4/5? Well, if I want to average two numbers, I want to add them together and divide by 2. But in order to add these fractions, since I don't have a calculator like you do, I'm going to have to make a common denominator. So I get 15/40 plus 32/40 divided by 2, which is 47/40 divided by 2, or times 1/2. So I get 47/80, and that corresponds to choice E. And I think I'm glad I didn't do it on my calculator. 54. 54. Mike has taken 4 algebra tests so far. His average is 85%. Okay, 85%. 85 times 4, which meant that he had a total of 340 points out of 400 on the 4 tests. All right, what does it say then? If he did not receive less than 80% on any of the tests, what was the most he could get on one test? Well, let's make the other 3 tests all be 80s. So 3 times 80 would be 240. Well, we know he's got 340 points. So the highest he could have had, if the other 3 were 80s, the highest he could have had would be 340 minus 240, or 100%. Okay. For number 54. Okay, 55. 55. 55 says the absolute value of x minus 3 is greater than x minus 3. Is the solution set for what inequality? Well, let's think about this. I'm not going to fall into that trap. I'm going to turn that into an equal sign. And now I'm going to make the positive component and the negative component. The positive component is just removing the absolute value bars. Oh, look, if I subtract x from both sides, I get negative 3 equals 3. And if I put that inequality symbol back in, the inequality symbol looked like this. Is that a true statement? No. So let's now go make the negative one. In order to make the negative component, I leave the left side alone, but now I switch both of the signs over here. Negative x plus 3. Well, I'm going to move this x over here, and I'm going to move that 3 over here. I'm going to have 2x equals 6, and I'm going to have x equals 3. But remember, we made the negative component. And because we made the negative component, that meant we divided everything by this negative 1. So we also took this inequality, and we divided an inequality by a negative, which means I need to change the direction of that inequality, which gives me choice B. There's a longer way to do this problem involving testing of intervals, and I'll probably end up showing you that in the next unit. Okay, 56. Which of the following is equivalent to I plus 7 over I minus 5 times I? Well, first we need to take care of this by multiplying top and bottom by the conjugate, complex conjugate. I need to FOIL on top, and when I do that, I get I squared plus 7i plus 5i plus 35. And on the bottom, when I FOIL, I get 1 minus 5i plus 5i minus 25. Well, let's tidy things up here. Remember, I squared is -1. -1 plus 35 is 34. And then here, 5i plus 7i is 12i. On the bottom, 1 minus 25 is -24, and minus 5i plus 5i, they cancel each other out. I do notice here that I can take 2 out of all of these. So this will be a 12, this will be a 17, and this will be a 6. Now finally, I still have to multiply by I. So 17 times I is 17i over -12. And then we've got 6 times I, which is 6i squared. I squared is -1. So this is minus 6 over -12. Okay, so what do we have here? Well, that looks like, 25, 1, no, I squared is -1. There it is, -1 minus 25 is minus 26, so this is 13, not 12. And so that now looks like G again. Common letter G for number 56. Okay, what about 57? 57 says, square inch of pizza contains 50 calories. Alex bakes a 12-inch diameter pizza. Okay, so if it's 12 inches in diameter, that means the radius must be 6. And we know the area of a circle is pi r squared. Since our radius is 6, we have 36 pi inches squared of pizza. Each of these square inches has, how many calories is that? 50 calories. Okay, so if I multiply this by 50 calories per square inch, the inches will cancel, or square inches will cancel. Now, there are 8 slices that we're dividing this into, but Alex has 2 and his dad has 3. Ooh, okay. So this is Alex has 2, his dad has 3. And we want to know how many more calories he had. So we want to take this number and subtract this number. Well, that, if I write it out, looks like 3/8, 50, 36 pi, minus 2/8, 50, 36 pi. Well, I've got 2 terms here, and I can factor out the common term. So if I factor out a 50 times a 36 pi, I'm left with 3/8 minus 2/8. Well, that's going to be 1/8. So I've got 1/8 times 50 times 36 pi. All right, well, let's do some reducing. I can take a 4 out of here and a 4 out of here. And I can take a 2 out of here and a 2 out of here. So I get 225 pi calories, which, if I pull out my calculator, will be close to 700 calories. Dad, you shouldn't have had that extra piece of pizza with 700 more calories than your son, Alex. Okay. That was 57, and it took the whole board. 58. 58 says tangent of theta equals v, and v is a number between 0 and 90. Okay, theta is between 0 and 90. So here's theta, v over 1, because tangent is opposite over adjacent. Hey, what would this side be if I were trying to find this? Well, I'd have to use the Pythagorean theorem. and I'd say v squared plus 1 squared equals question mark squared. But I don't want to know what question mark squared is. I want to know what question mark is. So I better take the square root of both sides. Question mark equals the square root of v squared plus 1. And no, 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 this is not equal to v plus 1. I can't take the square root of each piece. Stop it. Don't do that. This is just going to be the square root of v squared plus 1. Okay, and then the question says, what's the cosine of theta? Well, I know cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So the cosine of theta would be 1 over square root v squared plus 1, which is choice H. H for number 58. Okay, 59. Only 2 problems left to go. Let's take a look at 59. 59 says, Lisa, Carl, Max, Jenny, Andy go to watch a movie. They all sit at either, Andy must sit at either end of the group, but everyone else can sit anywhere. There's 5 of them. And let's put Andy here. Then there's 4 people who could sit here, and 3 who could sit here, and then 2 who could sit here, and only 1 for this. And Andy's only 1 person, so he gets 1 vote. Okay, so that's 12, 24. But wait a minute, that was Andy sitting over here. What if Andy sits on the other end? Then there are 4 people who could sit here, but only 3 who could sit here, and only 2 here, and only 1 here. And so that's another 24 choices for a total of 48 different ways to arrange these kids, and that's choice B for number 59. Okay, finally number 60, our last problem. It says standard point M and M lie on the graph of this. All right, so there's this point, and it's a strange point. But there's my input, my x value. Here's my output, 2 over g. And there's my y value. And it says the equation is y equals 1/3 x minus t. Okay, I'm going to plug this in here. No, I'm not. Don't be silly. I'm going to plug this in here. I'm going to plug this in here. So I've got n plus 2 over g equals 1/3 m minus 2 minus t. And then it says, what's the value for g? Ew, I don't like this at all. I take it back. Well, that. Oh, okay. Let's see how to do this smart, because this isn't smart right now. This has got all these letters. Okay, look. They gave me 2 ordered pairs. They said there's this ordered pair, and there's this other ordered pair, n plus 2 over g. Look, I've got 2 ordered pairs. I can make a slope. Aha! I know from y equals 1/3 x minus t that the slope is 1/3. So I'm going to use the slope formula, and I'm going to do y2 minus y1, n plus 2 over g minus n, over x2 minus x1, m minus 2 minus m. Notice how this tidies up. 2 over g over negative 2. So 2 over g over negative 2 is the same as 2 over g times negative 1/2, which is negative 1 over g, which is, remember the slope of our line, 1/3. So g must be negative 3. Okay, but what do they want? They want the value of g, and we found the value of g. Thank goodness. F is our answer for number 60, and we are done. So let me know if you have questions on any of these. I'm happy to go over them in more depth, and like I said in class today, we'll be doing a lot more of these going forward. Okay, take care.